Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. This is your lecture of gross anatomy, the lower limb. The topic of today is anatomy of the foot for first professional MBBS students. I am Dr. Karimullah, Demonstrator, Anatomy Department, GKMC Swabi. The foot is an important structure of our body. It supports our body. It provides leverage for walking and running because it is an arched like structure. So it enables the foot to adapt its shape to uneven surfaces. It is a resilient spring-like structure which absorbs shocks such as in jumping, etc. The sole of the foot. The skin is thick, hairless. Students, if you remember, once I told you in general anatomy in the study of integument, and you can see your hair in the picture as well, that there are two types of skins, the thick and the thin skin. The thin skin lacks the stratum lucidum, and the thick skin have all the strata. So in the palm and in the sole of the foot, we have thick skin. The skin is firmly bound to deep fascia by fibrous bands. Over here in the foot, the deep fascia, like the hand, is called the plantar fascia. In the hand, it was called the palmar fascia. So we call it the plantar aponeurosis instead of the palmar aponeurosis in the hand. We call it the plantar aponeurosis. The flexure creases at the sides of the skin movement, and these are present at the sides of the joint. The sweat glands are in plenty in number. The skin is highly sensitive due to the abundance of Meissner's corpuscles in high concentration. The thick stratum is the corneum. The subcutaneous are the tissues beneath the skin are densely fibrous, and these fibrous tissues are arranged in septa. Septa divide in the tissues into laculi, and you can see in the sole of the foot in the picture. These laculi are filled with fluid fat, and it is under tension, which provide resistance against the pressure. The function is shock absorption, especially it anchors the skin to underlying plantar fascia, and it limits the mobility of the skin. The cutaneous innervation of the sole of the foot is medial side of the heel is supplied by medial calcaneal nerve. Medial 2/3 is supplied by the medial plantar nerve. The lateral 2/3 of the sole of the foot is supplied by the lateral plantar nerve. The saphenous nerve, which was the continuation of the femoral nerve from the adductor canal in the leg region on the medial side, and it supplied the skin on the medial side and the tibia bone, and then it descended on the medial aspect up to the great toe. It supplies that area. The sural nerve also supplies some part of the on the lateral aspect of the foot. Now the nerves supplying the muscles on the sole of the foot. These muscles receive supply from the tibial nerve, and these nerves are the medial and the lateral plantar nerves. The medial plantar nerve supply 3.5 medial toes, and the lateral nerve supplies 1.5 lateral toes. It perforates through the plantar aponeurosis and goes to its destination. The blood supply, the blood vessels accompany the cutaneous nerves. Students, the blood supply will be told to you by the Dr. Jamshed Saab. The plantar fascia. The plantar fascia is the deep fascia like that of the palmar fascia in the hand, or here the plantar fascia is the deep fascia of the sole of the foot. It is triangular in shape and its function is protection of the nerves, the vessels, the muscles, and it also maintains the longitudinal arches of the foot, that is the medial longitudinal arch and the lateral longitudinal arch of the foot. Its attachment. At the apex, it is attached medially and laterally to the calcaneal tubercles, bilaterally on both sides, attached to the metatarsal bones by septa. The base divides into 5 slips and the 5 slips goes toward each toe. Plantar fasciitis. It is a clinical condition of the plantar fascia. It is the inflammation of the plantar fascia. It results in pain in the sole of the foot, and the cause may be long standing or for long distance walking, or repeated trauma due to walking on pebbles, or repeated trauma due to any other reasons. It manifests on pain and tenderness and ossification in the calcaneal bone. The ossification in the calcaneal bone is also called calcaneal spur, SPUR, calcaneal spur formation. Dear students, next to the skin and the fascia of the foot, we find the muscles of the foot, the extrinsic muscles of the foot and the intrinsic tendons entering from the leg. The long muscles, they send their tendons in the foot for their proper function, and the intrinsic muscles which arise in the foot and inserts in the foot, these are called the intrinsic muscles. So by now we are going to discuss the muscles of the foot, the extrinsic or the intrinsic muscles. The extrinsic muscles, were responsible for eversion, inversion, plantar flexion and the dorsiflexion of the foot. The intrinsic muscles, they are responsible for fine motor actions of the foot and the movement of individual digits. In the sole of the foot, there are multiple muscles and they are arranged in 4 layers. The total number of muscles are 10 and they are arranged in 4 layers. The first layer contains the abductor hallucis muscle, flexor digitorum brevis muscle, abductor digiti minimi. The second layer contains the quadratus plantae and the lumbricals muscles. The third layer contains the flexor hallucis brevis, adductor hallucis muscle and flexor digiti minimi brevis muscle. The fourth layer contains the plantar and the dorsal interossei as were there in the hand. The students, on the dorsal aspect of the foot, there are 2 muscles, the extensor digitorum brevis and the extensor hallucis brevis muscle. They assist some of the extrinsic muscle tendons. Their nerve supply is from deep fibular nerve. So the extensor digitorum brevis muscle, it is deep to the tendon of extensor digitorum longus muscle. You can see the black tendons in the diagram on the right side, underneath which is the red muscle. That is the extensor digitorum longus, the black one, and the extensor digitorum brevis is the short muscle of the intrinsic muscle of the foot, which arises from the calcaneus and talocalcaneal ligament. Its insertion is in the long extensor tendons or the dorsal digital expansion on the dorsum of the middle phalanges, at the base of the middle phalanges, and its action is it assists the extensor digitorum longus and extends medial four toes at the metatarsophalangeal joint and the interphalangeal joints. Its nerve supply is from the deep peroneal nerve, and its blood supply is from the dorsalis pedis artery, as is shown in the diagram on the right side. Now the extensor hallucis brevis muscle. It is medial to the extensor digitorum longus muscle tendon and lateral to the extensor hallucis longus muscle tendon. Its origin is from the calcaneus bone, the talocalcaneal ligament, and the inferior extensor retinaculum. It inserts at the base of the proximal phalanx of the great toe in the dorsal digital expansion. Its action is it assists the extensor hallucis longus in extending great toe at the metatarsophalangeal joint, and its nerve supply is from the deep fibular nerve. Now coming back to the plantar aspect, we have 10 intrinsic muscles, and they are similar to corresponding muscles of the hand. Their collective action is to stabilize the arches of the foot, the longitudinal arches, the medial and the lateral, and the transverse arch. And the individual action is to control the movement of the digits. Their nerve supply is from the medial and the lateral plantar nerve. Both of the medial and lateral plantar nerves are the branches of the tibial nerve. And you know, tibial nerve is the branch of the sciatic nerve. And the tibial nerve supplies the flexors. The peroneal nerve supplies the extensors. Now, the arrangement of the muscles is in 4 layers, and these layers are arranged from superficial to deep. Now the first layer of the muscles of the sole of the foot, these are 3 in number, most superficial to the sole, just beneath the plantar fascia, and these are, you can see, the abductor hallucis, the yellow one, the red one is the flexor digitorum brevis to all digits, and the abductor digiti minimi, which abducts the small toe. Now the muscles one by one. Abductor hallucis muscle. On the medial side it is situated. Small soft tissue bulge you can see on the surface, and it arises from the medial calcaneal tubercle and the flexor retinaculum and the plantar aponeurosis. Its insertion is upon the base of the proximal phalanx of the big toe, as you can see, and the actions is to abduct and flexes the great toe. The nerve supply is the medial plantar nerve. The flexor digitorum brevis muscle arises from medial calcaneal tubercle and the plantar aponeurosis. It inserts upon the middle phalanges of the lateral 4 digits. Its action is to flex the interphalangeal joint, the proximal interphalangeal joint, and it assists the long flexor tendons, and its nerve supply is the medial plantar nerve. The abductor digiti minimi arises from lateral and medial calcaneal tubercle and the plantar aponeurosis, and at the base of the proximal phalanx of the fifth digit it inserts and it abducts the and flex the fifth digit. Its nerve supply is from the lateral plantar nerve. The second layer is composed of quadratus plantae, the lumbricals. In addition to these two muscles, the tendons of flexor digitorum longus and the flexor of tendon of flexor hallucis longus is also present in this layer. In between the first and the second layers of the sole of the foot, the lateral plantar vessels and nerves, they are lying and they separate both of the groups of muscles. So the quadratus plantae is the first muscle in the second group, and it arises from lateral and medial calcaneal surfaces. Its insertion is in the tendons of the flexor digitorum longus. You can see in the diagram shown by yellow tendons. The action is to assist the flexor digitorum longus tendons, and the nerve supply of this muscle is lateral plantar nerve. The lumbricals are 4 in number and each arise from the medial side of the respective flexor digitorum longus tendons. If you remember, the lumbricals of the hand were arising from the tendon of the flexor digitorum profundus. The insertion is in the extensor hoods of the lateral 4 digits. Its action is to flex the metatarsophalangeal joint and extends the interphalangeal joint. The nerve supply is the medial by the medial plantar and the remaining 3 by the lateral plantar nerve. The third layer of the muscles of the soles of the foot. It contains 3 muscles: the flexor hallucis brevis, the adductor hallucis, and the flexor digiti minimi brevis muscles. The flexor hallucis brevis muscle, it arises from the cuboid bone and the lateral cuneiform. It inserts at the base of the proximal phalanx of the big toe, and its action is to flex the proximal phalanx at the metatarsophalangeal joint, and its nerve supply is from the medial plantar nerve. The adductor hallucis muscle, it arises by 2 heads, the oblique head and the transverse head. The oblique head, and it is shown in the diagram as well, arises from the basis of the first 4 metatarsal bones. The transverse head arises from the plantar ligament of the metatarsophalangeal joints. The insertion is at the base of the proximal phalanx of great toe, and its action is to adduct the toe. It assists in forming transverse arch. The nerve supply is the deep branch of the lateral plantar nerve. The flexor digiti minimi brevis muscle. It arises from the base of the 5th metatarsal bone and inserts upon the base of the proximal phalanx of 5th digit. Its action is flexion of the proximal phalanx of the 5th digit, and its nerve supply is the superficial branch of lateral plantar nerve. The fourth and the last layer is formed by the plantar and the dorsal interossei. The plantar interossei are unipinnate and the dorsal interossei are bipinnate. The plantar interossei are 3 in number and occupies the space between the metatarsal bones. They arise from medial side of the third, fourth and fifth metatarsal bones. The insertion is on the medial side of the phalanges of third, fourth and fifth digits. Their action is to adduct third, fourth and fifth digits and flex the metatarsophalangeal joints. Their nerve supply is the lateral plantar nerve. The dorsal interossei are four in number and they lie between the metatarsal bones and they arise from the sides of the first to the fifth metatarsal bones. The first insert upon the medial side of the proximal phalanx of second digit, the second, third and fourth on the lateral sides of the proximal phalanges of the second, third and fourth digits. Their action is to abduct the digits, the second, third and fourth and flex the metatarsal phalangeal joint. The nerve supply is lateral plantar nerve. Here's the last item. The plantar and dorsal interossei were the same as those of the hand interossei, the palmar and the dorsal interossei, in both in structure and in function. Thank you very much. May you have good time. Next time we will meet with another interesting topic. Thank you very much.